I am Zane, a relationship consultant and psychologist. And I want to speak to the part of you that left, but still wonders if you were the one who caused the damage, that quiet guilt. It does not shout. It waits. It sits in your chest when things get quiet. It whispers, maybe you were too sensitive. Maybe you gave up too soon. And even when you are free, you still feel bound. But here's what I need you to hear. Guilt does not always come from doing something wrong. Sometimes it comes from doing something right, but unfamiliar. Sometimes it comes from finally breaking a pattern that was never yours to carry. And breaking that pattern, it hurts. Because it goes against everything you were taught about love, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. This episode is about that guilt, the soft, sticky kind that clings even after the danger is gone. If you are feeling that, stay with me. You're not the villain in your story. You're the one who finally stopped pretending it was not hurting. Number 1. The quiet guilt after abuse. Why it stays even when they are gone. That guilt that shows up after the abuse ends. It is not logical. It is emotional. It is ancient. It whispers, maybe it was me. Maybe I should have tried harder. And even though you know the relationship was harmful, your body still carries the weight of responsibility, as if choosing yourself was a crime. You can be surrounded by support, validation, facts still, deep in your chest. Something clenches when you think of how it ended. Because when you have been trained to earn love through suffering, peace feels undeserved. Freedom feels suspicious. And instead of celebrating your escape, you interrogate it. You feel like you cheated the system. But what if the truth is you just finally stopped betraying yourself? Number 2. Why guilt lingers after narcissistic abuse. You can know logically that someone manipulated you, that they gaslit you, that they disrespected your boundaries. And still, the guilt stays. You think, maybe I could have explained it better, or I was not perfect either. You replay conversations, wondering if you were the problem. And that confusion is not accidental. It is embedded in the design of emotional abuse. You were taught to internalize conflict, to take ownership of someone else's chaos. So even when you walk away, that reflex stays alive. You carry guilt not because you were wrong, but because you were always expected to take the blame. And that expectation does not vanish the moment the relationship ends. It lingers like muscle memory. Number 3, emotional conditioning. How abuse teaches guilt as loyalty. This is not accidental. Narcissistic dynamics teach you that love is earned through sacrifice, that care means self-erasure, that being good means never complaining, never leaving, never needing. Over time, you are not just in a toxic relationship, you are shaped by it. Measure your worth by how much pain you can tolerate without flinching. And when you finally say enough, it feels like rebellion. It's not just against them, but against your entire emotional blueprint. You begin to grieve the version of you who kept smiling through it. And instead of celebrating your strength, you question it. Because no one taught you that saying no can be love, and that choosing yourself can be caring. Date. The guilt can show up even when you are doing the healthiest thing you have ever done. Number 4, survivor's guilt. When leaving feels like betrayal, you might even feel worse after leaving. It's not because it was the wrong decision, but because guilt rushes in to fill the silence. It feels like betrayal, like you abandoned someone, like you quit. Even if that person hurt you, you mourn the version of yourself who kept believing they would change. And that mourning gets confused with guilt. You feel like you left too soon, or too late, or too harshly. You keep trying to rewrite the ending, even though it already happened. That is what survivor's guilt does. It makes you question whether your pain justified your choice. It convinces you that loyalty should have lasted longer than your limits. But real love, real safety ever demands your disappearance. Number 5, guilt versus responsibility. Knowing what is yours and what is not. Part of healing is learning to separate what you feel from what you are responsible for. Actually, feeling guilty does not mean you did something wrong. It means your nervous system is still learning what safety feels like. It means your emotional reflexes were trained to serve someone else's comfort. So when you choose yourself now, when you rest, when you speak up, when you leave, it feels unnatural. But that discomfort is not danger. It is just the absence of abuse, and that is hard to sit with. Because when pain becomes your baseline, peace feels foreign. You might even sabotage it just to feel normal again. But slowly, with practice, You begin to learn the difference between guilt and responsibility. You begin to say, that feeling is real, but it does not mean I did something wrong. Number 6, the guilt of moving on and why it feels like abandonment. Even when you find peace, guilt shows up again. It says you are forgetting them. You did not suffer enough. You moved on too quickly. It questions your growth. It whispers shame into your healing. But guilt is not a compass. It is a residue. It sticks around long after the abuse ends. Not because you were bad, but because you were trained to feel bad for protecting yourself. Guilt after trauma is not a verdict. It is a scar. And sometimes it reopens when you take up space, when you find joy, when you start to trust again. The guilt does not mean you are wrong. It just means you are standing in a place your nervous system never thought was possible. And that place, that is where you start again. Number 7, releasing guilt without rewriting the past. You do not have to justify leaving by proving how bad it was. You do not need to collect receipts or convince anyone. Your experience is valid even if no one saw it. You do not owe guilt anything. You owe yourself peace. And releasing guilt does not mean forgetting. It means honoring your story without letting it own you. It means standing in your truth without needing permission. It means forgiving yourself not for leaving, but for taking so long to know that you could. And when the guilt flares up again, which it might, you can meet it with kindness. Not to excuse it, but to say, I see you, I remember, and I still choose me. Number 8, what if the guilt never fully goes away? Maybe some of it will stay, not to punish you, but to remind you how much you felt, how deeply you loved. How long have you tried? Let that part be sacred, not shameful. Let it remind you that your sensitivity was never a weakness. It was devotion. Your struggle to leave did not make you naive. It made you human. Let it still visit you. Let it sit beside your growth, not above it. Let it live in the background while you keep moving forward. You do not need to silence it. You just need to stop obeying it. Have you carried guilt even after walking away from someone who hurt you? How did you start trusting your decision again? Let someone know in the comments. Someone else might need to hear that they are not weak for feeling torn. They are healing. Guilt does not mean you chose wrong. It means you cared deeply in a situation that did not care for you back. And if this message helped you name something real, make sure to subscribe to STR TV for more emotionally grounded content on recovery and self-respect. In the next episode, we'll explore how survivors of narcissistic abuse often struggle with emotional intimacy, not because they are cold, but because trust no longer feels safe. We will talk about emotional shutdown, fear of vulnerability, and what it means to rebuild connection after betrayal. Until then, stay gentle with your guilt. Let it speak, but do not let it steer. You are allowed to feel everything and still move forward. Subscribe to STR TV to keep these conversations alive and to keep choosing your truth, even when it feels unfamiliar.